Would you call a woman cruel for saying what everyone else was too afraid to say? I was the one who turned my husband's little workshop into a real brand, so of course I understood why people clicked. Be realistic, his talent mattered, but his skin color gave the audience a story they wanted to celebrate. I only said it during a live stream because I was tired of being erased. There were 2 cameras, 3 sponsors, and 1 man taking all the credit. My husband touched the inside of his wedding ring and calmly allowed me to continue. By the end of that stream, everyone would finally understand which one of us had made him successful. My name is Delaney Price. I am 33, and I manage brand partnerships for a lifestyle media agency, so be realistic. I know why people click on things. I was the person who turned my husband's little workshop into a real channel. Yet there I was counting 2 cameras, 3 sponsors, and dozens of customers, while Marcus accepted every compliment as if success had found him alone. I was not trying to hurt him. I was trying to make him admit that talent was only one part of the story. When I explained that his appearance helped people remember him, Marcus touched the inside of his wedding ring and allowed me to finish, the way he always did when he had no answer. By the end of that weekend, everyone would understand which one of us had truly built his name. The artisan market filled an old train hall near downtown Cleveland, with iron beams above us and the smell of coffee mixed with fresh wood oil. Marcus had arranged his tables in perfect lines. Walnut shelves stood behind him. Small boxes, cutting boards, and curved lamps covered the front display. People kept running their fingers over the smooth edges and asking how he made them. My husband's little workshop had started in our garage with 1 borrowed camera and a lamp from my office. I had named the channel Grain and Grit because Marcus wanted to call it Marcus Makes Things, which sounded like a school project. I designed the first logo, wrote the descriptions, and contacted sponsors until one finally answered. Marcus did the woodworking. I made strangers care about it. That was our system. At least, that was how I described it. Before the channel, we spent Saturdays walking through flea markets. Marcus searched for damaged furniture while I searched for things that still looked expensive. Once, he found an old drafting table with a cracked corner and rusted metal legs. It had belonged to my mother, who had used it when she worked in advertising. After she died, I kept it in storage because I could not stand to see how ruined it looked. Marcus repaired it without telling me. He sanded the surface, replaced 1 leg, and left the old scratches where my mother's ruler had cut into the wood. He placed it in my home office before my birthday. He never made a speech about it. That was Marcus. He believed the work should speak. It was sweet when we were younger. Later, it became a problem. Around noon, a woman bought one of his side tables and asked how he had built such a loyal audience. Marcus told her that he had kept working until people finally paid attention. That was all. No mention of the woman who had edited his first 50 videos. No mention of the nights I answered comments while he slept. No mention of the sponsor calls I took during lunch. I waited until the customer left, then asked whether he had heard himself. Marcus looked at me with soft confusion and asked what part had bothered me. I told him he had spoken as if I were never there. He said he thought people understood that we had built the channel together. That answer made it worse. People do not understand anything unless you tell them. I knew that better than anyone because of my mother. She once created the main idea for a national campaign. Her supervisor accepted the award. My mother sat 6 seats from the stage and clapped while he thanked the company. She told me later that good work always finds its owner. It did not. He kept the award. She kept the drafts. So when Marcus said people understood, I heard the same weak excuse. I told him that silence only helped the person standing closest to the microphone. He asked whether I wanted him to correct every customer who praised him. I said I wanted him to stop pretending he had become successful alone. Marcus rubbed his thumb against the inside of his wedding ring. Then he asked what had changed between us, because I had once been proud when people recognized his work. I told him nothing had changed. I was simply being honest now. Sabrina stood near the payment table, pretending to check the card reader while listening. She was my closest friend at the agency and understood how brands worked. When Marcus walked away to help another customer, She told me that I had every right to demand credit. Her smile made the anger feel clean. A few minutes later, a group of college students asked Marcus for a photograph. One of them said it was inspiring to see someone like him building a serious business in a field where people did not always expect it. Marcus thanked him and moved the conversation back to woodworking. I watched from behind the display. The students did not ask who had designed the channel. They did not ask who negotiated the partnerships. They wanted Marcus, his hands, his story. So be realistic. His skill mattered, but so did the way audiences saw him. I told Sabrina that people liked the idea of being surprised by a black craftsman who was calm, careful, and successful. She said I should never say it that directly on camera. I laughed because she was thinking like an employee. I was thinking like a strategist. Marcus returned while Naomi, our freelance camera operator, was packing one of the tripods. He asked her to save the full live stream from the day, not only the edited highlights. Naomi wanted to know whether he meant every minute, including the quiet parts between customers. He said yes. He wanted the original file stored with the older streams. I asked why anyone needed 4 hours of people walking past tables. Marcus said he liked having complete records of how the channel had grown. I called it sentimental nonsense from my husband's little workshop. Naomi looked at him, then at me, and said she would save everything. Marcus touched his ring again and let the subject die. To me, that habit meant he was retreating. He never fought when the conversation became uncomfortable. He went quiet, returned to his tools, and expected a repaired table or a paid bill to explain what he could not say. By 3 o'clock, the market had become crowded. I counted 47 sales, 6 sponsor conversations, and 1 local reporter waiting beside our banner. My phone sat on the walnut stand Marcus had made for me during our first year of marriage. My initials were carved into the base. I used it to check the channel inbox while the reporter interviewed him. A new message appeared from Darius Carter, the founder of a construction and restoration company I recognized immediately. He had watched Marcus build a curved walnut staircase and wanted to discuss a larger partnership. The message mentioned a shared workshop, renovation projects, and a possible training program. It was the kind of offer that could turn a channel into a company. Marcus was 10 feet away, smiling for another photograph. I read the message twice, moved it into a separate folder, and locked my phone. He would see it soon. Of course he would. First, I needed to decide how much of that opportunity belonged to the man holding the tools, and how much belonged to the woman who had taught the world where to look. I waited until Monday morning before telling Marcus about Darius Carter's message. That was not deception. Be realistic. Serious opportunities needed preparation, and my husband's little workshop was not ready to sit across from a man who managed construction crews, property contracts, and millions of dollars. Marcus knew wood. I knew people. Those were different skills. Before showing him the message, I answered Darius from the channel account and explained that all partnership discussions should include me as brand director. I also moved the original email into a folder marked development, where Marcus rarely looked. 2 messages. 1 reply. No damage done. At least that was how I counted it. Darius responded within an hour. He said he had watched Marcus build a curved walnut staircase without hiding mistakes or speeding through the difficult parts. He wanted to discuss custom interiors, a training program for young tradespeople, and a shared workshop that could produce a renovation series. His answer mentioned Marcus 6 times. It mentioned me once. I read it again, then changed the meeting request so all communication passed through my work calendar. That evening, Marcus was sanding cabinet doors in the garage when I finally told him. The air smelled of cedar, and fine dust covered the sleeves of his grey shirt. He stopped the machine and asked when the message had arrived. I said it came over the weekend. He asked whether that meant Saturday morning at 11:17, before the reporter interviewed him. I looked at him because the exact time sounded ridiculous. Then he asked why the email had been moved from the main inbox at 11:24 and answered from my phone at 11:39. He did not accuse me of anything. He simply gave me the times. I told him he was becoming obsessive over an inbox I had managed for years. Marcus touched the inside of his wedding ring. He asked why I had not shown him the message before replying. What he meant was simple. What I heard was that my judgment no longer mattered. I reminded him that Darius had contacted a brand, not a man standing alone in a garage. Marcus said Darius had written about his work. I told him the work would still be invisible without the brand I had built around it. He looked at the cabinet door between us, then asked whether I believed every opportunity belonged to me first because I controlled the password. I said I believed successful couples used each other's strengths. His silence after that changed the room. He turned the sander back on, and the conversation ended because noise was easier for him than an answer. The next night, my agency held a rooftop event for home and lifestyle clients. White lights hung above the tables, and the wind kept lifting the corners of the printed menus. Sabrina arrived early and saved me a seat near the sponsor representatives. She wanted every detail about Darius. When I explained that Marcus had become suspicious over one delayed email, she said I should stop apologizing for being the adult behind the business. That was why I trusted her. Sabrina understood that support could become unpaid labor when nobody named it. Owen Mercer joined us after the first drinks were served. He produced renovation programs for a British streaming company and had the careful smile of a man who studied a room before choosing a chair. He had seen grain and grit. More importantly, he had seen my campaign work. Owen told me Marcus was convincing on camera because he looked genuine, but the channel's growth showed professional planning. He said the person shaping the audience often mattered more than the person holding the tool. Marcus had never said anything that direct about me. Owen asked whether I had executive producer credit. I told him the channel still operated informally. He said informal arrangements were useful until one person became famous and forgot who built the ladder. Sabrina laughed. I did too, though the sentence stayed with me. Owen then described a renovation series with a stronger media structure. He said Marcus could remain the craftsman while I became the visible business mind. Later, the format might need someone more cooperative in front of the camera. He never said Marcus should be replaced. He did not need to. I told Owen I was open to serious ideas. That was not betrayal. It was leverage. The next morning, Marcus was waiting in my office beside the drafting table he had restored for me. My walnut phone stand sat near his hand. He did not touch it. He asked about a short clip spreading online from an older live stream. In the clip, I had told viewers that people were impressed by Marcus because they expected less from men who looked like him. I remembered the stream. We had been discussing prejudice in the trades, and I had made one sharp comment. Marcus said a teacher had written to him because several students heard it during a classroom project. One student had asked whether Marcus's success counted less because he was black. Marcus gave me the date of the stream, the section where I spoke, and the number of messages that followed, again with the details, again with the counting. I told him he was removing the comment from its context. He said the context was 4 minutes long and asked whether I wanted to watch the full section with him. I refused. I knew what I had meant. He asked whether I understood what the students had heard. I told him I could not control people who chose to misunderstand an honest discussion. Marcus touched his ring and asked why honesty always seemed to leave him smaller. That question irritated me because it turned a business problem into a marriage problem. I told him he was using his identity to attract attention, then punishing me for acknowledging that identity existed. Naomi stood in the hallway holding a camera case. She had heard enough to know what we were discussing, but she kept her eyes on the zipper. Marcus asked her whether the complete stream was still stored. Naomi said it was, along with the original audio. I asked why he needed a full recording when the public clip was already online. He said incomplete stories caused enough trouble. I called it another one of his archive habits and returned to my laptop. Naomi carried the case downstairs without taking either side. By Friday, the clip had reached 40,000 views. I counted 3 sponsor emails, 11 angry messages, and hundreds of comments arguing over whether I was racist or simply honest. Sabrina sent me screenshots of people defending me. Owen sent one sentence saying controversy could be useful when handled by the right person. Marcus wanted the clip removed. I wanted to use it. The Home Improvement Convention had already offered us a live stage, and I proposed a public discussion about race, craftsmanship, and branding. Marcus asked whether I wanted a conversation or an audience. I told him an audience was the only kind of conversation people remembered. He touched his ring and said nothing else. By the end of the week, I had written the event description, contacted the sponsors, and placed my name beside Marcus's as moderator. My next move was simple. I would explain the truth clearly enough that nobody could erase me from it. The home improvement convention filled 2 floors of a glass exhibition center outside Cleveland, and the main hall smelled of sawdust, hot lights, and the sweet glaze from a donut stand near the entrance. Marcus had been given 40 minutes on the live stream stage to build the curved front section of a walnut desk. I had been given the microphone. Be realistic. That arrangement made sense. My husband's little workshop had grown because he could make beautiful things, and I could explain why people should care. Naomi checked the cameras while I reviewed the running order on my phone. 2 fixed cameras, 1 moving camera, 4 sponsor logos behind the stage. Nearly 600 viewers waiting online before Marcus even touched the wood. Darius sat in the second row beside one of his project managers. Aisha was near the aisle. Sabrina had come from the agency, though she spent most of the morning answering messages instead of talking to me. Owen stood near the sponsor area with his arms folded, watching the crowd the way he always did. Marcus asked whether I planned to follow the approved questions. His voice stayed calm, but he kept looking at the extra cards in my hand. I told him the audience needed a real conversation, not another safe demonstration from my husband's little workshop. He asked whether real meant discussing his race while he was trapped beneath stage lights. I said he was not trapped. He had a microphone, a business, and hundreds of people ready to admire him. Marcus touched the inside of his wedding ring. He asked me not to turn his identity into a marketing lesson. I told him that refusing to discuss why people watched him was another way of hiding behind it. Naomi announced that we had 30 seconds. Marcus looked toward the workbench, then said he would focus on the build. I heard retreat. The event host introduced us, and the lights rose. Marcus began with the walnut panel, showing how he marked the curve before cutting. His hands stayed steady. The first 10 minutes went exactly as planned. I asked about tools, safety, and the difference between handmade work and factory furniture. Marcus answered clearly. The audience leaned forward whenever he demonstrated a difficult cut. Then I moved to the part I had written for myself. I explained that grain and grit had never been only about furniture. It was about changing expectations. Marcus stopped sanding for half a second, then continued. That tiny pause told me he knew where I was going. I said audiences responded to stories that challenged what they thought a craftsman should look like. A few people nodded. Darius did not. I kept my smile and explained that Marcus's calm style, careful speech, and professional image surprised viewers who carried narrow ideas about black men in construction. The hall became quieter. Marcus placed the sander on the table. He did not look at me. I told the audience that pretending those expectations did not exist would be dishonest. Without strategy, Marcus might still be building alone in a garage while people treated him like ordinary labor instead of a business owner. Someone near the back shifted a chair. The sound crossed the stage. Aisha lowered her phone. One sponsor representative turned toward another and whispered something I could not hear. I counted 5 people no longer smiling. That did not mean I was wrong. It meant I had touched the part nobody wanted to discuss. Marcus finally looked at me. He touched the inside of his wedding ring, then glanced toward Naomi. With 2 fingers resting against the workbench, he gave her a small downward motion. Naomi did not stop the live stream. She adjusted the moving camera and kept it pointed at us. I took that as proof that Marcus had no answer strong enough to use. If he truly believed I was humiliating him, he could have walked away. He stayed. So I continued. I said his talent was real, but talent alone had never built a brand. I had designed the name, planned the campaigns, and taught sponsors how to see him. People liked the idea of discovering someone they had underestimated, and I understood how to sell that feeling. A few voices moved through the room. I laughed and called the comment a joke because the tension had become too serious. Honest couples joked about uncomfortable things. That was what I said. Marcus stood beside the unfinished desk and let me finish every word. The stillness on his face looked like defeat from where I stood. Darius stopped taking notes. Owen remained near the sponsor wall, but he no longer looked at me. He watched Marcus instead. Sabrina gave one short laugh, then saw that nobody joined her and lowered her eyes to her phone. The event host stepped closer to the stage as if he might interrupt, but Marcus picked up the sanding block and returned to the walnut. He completed the curve by hand. No speech, no dramatic exit. Just slow strokes across the wood while I answered a question from the audience about whether controversy helped engagement. I said any strong brand needed honesty. The applause at the end was uneven. Some people stood for Marcus. Others remained seated. Darius waited until Marcus placed the finished panel on the display table, then approached him without looking at me. He requested a private meeting after the convention. Marcus agreed. I stepped closer and reminded Darius that all business discussions normally pass through me. Darius said the first conversation concerned craftsmanship and training, so Marcus could attend alone. His project manager closed the folder between them. That small movement irritated me more than the words. Marcus did not defend my role. He only touched his ring and thanked Darius for the invitation. In the parking garage, the concrete walls carried every sound back to us. Marcus placed his tools in the trunk and asked whether I understood what I had done on stage. I told him I had explained the reality he was too proud to admit. He said I had turned his race into a product and then blamed him for refusing to thank me. His voice never rose. That made the accusation sound rehearsed, which gave me a reason to dismiss it. I told him society already judged him by his skin color and that I was the only person honest enough to help him use that judgment instead of being crushed by it. Marcus said describing prejudice was not the same as repeating it into a microphone. I answered that he could not build a channel around challenging stereotypes and then accuse me of racism whenever I discussed them. He closed the trunk. One click. Then he asked why every version of my honesty left him smaller. I told him he was making himself small by refusing to acknowledge the person who had built his platform. Marcus touched his ring again. He said the platform no longer sounded like something we shared. Back in the hotel room, my walnut phone stand held the screen while I reviewed clips from the event. The engraving with my initials faced me. The most controversial section was already spreading faster than the woodworking demonstration. 40,000 views became 62,000 before midnight. 3 sponsors asked for context. Owen sent a message saying we should speak before I made another public statement. Sabrina suggested cutting future live streams more carefully, which was the first time she treated my honesty like a problem instead of a strength. I recorded a voice message for her, saying Marcus would still be invisible without me, and that Darius was only interested because I had turned a local craftsman into a useful story. My thumb hit the wrong conversation. The message went into the shared production chat with Marcus and Naomi. I deleted it within seconds. Naomi replied only that the full communication export had already synchronized. I set the phone back on the walnut stand and decided it did not matter. Darius wanted a private meeting with Marcus because he had not yet seen how badly Marcus needed someone who understood business. I would let them talk. Then I would enter the room with the numbers, the sponsor history, and the plan neither of them could build without me. Aisha invited us to dinner 3 days after the convention. She chose her dining room instead of a restaurant because she said some conversations should not have an audience. The table smelled of baked rosemary chicken, and the ceiling fan clicked once every few turns. 4 plates. 3 glasses of water. 1 empty chair where Aisha's husband usually sat before his night shift. I counted those details because nobody touched the food. Aisha began by saying she had watched the full convention stream twice. She told Marcus that he had allowed people to call him self-made for years without correcting them, even when I had built the first version of the channel. Marcus did not argue. He said he should have named my work more clearly. I waited for Aisha to stop there. She did not. She turned to me and said that being denied credit did not give me the right to reduce her brother to a racial story I could sell. I told her she was protecting him because he was family. Aisha said she was protecting neither of us. She reminded Marcus that disappearing into work whenever the marriage became difficult had helped create the resentment sitting at her table. Then she asked me why every demand for recognition included an explanation of why he deserved less respect. Be realistic, I said. The world already judged men like Marcus before they opened their mouths, and pretending otherwise did not help anyone. Aisha asked whether I thought repeating that judgment into a microphone made me brave. I told her I had spoken about a system, not attacked her brother. Marcus touched the inside of his wedding ring and let me finish. I took that silence as agreement with at least part of what I said. Aisha did not. She pushed her plate away and said my husband's little workshop had become important enough for me to claim, yet not important enough for me to respect the man who built inside it. I stood before dessert. Marcus followed me to the car without trying to repair the evening. The next afternoon, I found him sitting in the workshop beside my mother's restored drafting table. He had moved it there from my office weeks earlier because I said I needed more space, and now one of his old channel signs leaned against it. Dust floated through the light from the side window. Marcus ran one finger along the edge he had repaired years ago. He asked whether I remembered the first video we made together. I said I remembered editing it until 2 in the morning while he went to bed. He nodded and said he remembered that too. Then he said that before there were viewers, sponsors, or comments, he believed I was the one person who saw what he could do before seeing the color of his skin. His voice stayed low. No accusation, no performance. He looked at the old sign instead of me and said he no longer knew when that had stopped being true. I heard emotional pressure. Marcus had ignored my need for public credit, and now he wanted one sad sentence to erase that. I told him he could not withdraw from me for years and then act wounded when I explained the reality he refused to discuss. He asked whether every failure in our marriage had to become permission for me to humiliate him. I said humiliation was his word, not mine. To me, it was honesty. Marcus touched his ring, but this time his hand remained there longer. He told me the problem was no longer one convention or one clip. It was the pattern. Every time I felt unseen, I made him smaller in front of someone else. Every time he tried to speak privately, I moved the argument to a larger room. I told him larger rooms were where truth mattered. He said larger rooms were where I could win without listening. That answer gave me an idea. I proposed an apology video, not a weak one, a controlled statement. I would admit that my wording had been careless while explaining that discrimination in construction was real and that uncomfortable conversations were necessary. Marcus could sit beside me. We would show unity, protect the sponsors, and move forward. It was a fair compromise. My professional reputation mattered too. Marcus asked whether the apology would include me saying that his success was not created by his race. I told him I would not lie to make him comfortable. He asked whether it would include admitting that I had answered Darius without permission. I said business decisions were separate from marriage. Marcus looked at me for several seconds. Then he explained that every apology I designed still used him as evidence inside my story. I was not asking him to forgive me. I was asking him to help me market the damage. I shut down the conversation and told him I would record the statement alone if necessary. That evening, I went into the storage bay looking for the portable lights. Naomi was there beside a folding table covered with external drives. The air smelled of cardboard and machine oil. Each drive had a white label with a date and a short title. Artisan Market, Sponsor Inbox, Convention Stage, Production Chat. There were more than I expected. Naomi was copying files between 2 computers, and a progress bar moved slowly across one screen. I asked why she kept so many complete recordings when edited clips were easier to manage. She said Marcus had requested synchronized backups of every live stream, original audio track, and production message. I picked up the drive marked Convention Stage. Naomi asked me to put it down because the copy was still running. For a few seconds, the labels formed a line across the table, and Marcus's exact dates returned to me. The deleted voice message, the archived email, the full market stream. His habit did not look sentimental in that room. It looked organized. Naomi reached for the drive, and I handed it back. I almost asked how long Marcus had been requesting these backups. Instead, I decided he was planning a documentary about surviving controversy. That made sense. He had always preferred proof to emotion, and any documentary worth selling would need my strategy. I told Naomi not to release anything without approval from the brand account. She said she would follow the existing production instructions. Her answer was careful enough to annoy me, so I left with the lights. Over the next week, the circle around me became quieter. Aisha left the family group chat. 2 colleagues who normally saved me a seat at agency lunches sat with a sponsor team instead. Sabrina took a day to answer messages she once answered in minutes. Darius sent Marcus a proposal directly and listed me only as a possible guest for the company opening. Owen remained interested, but his calls became shorter and focused on numbers. I understood what was happening. People were waiting to see who controlled the next public version of the story. So I opened a new presentation on my mother's drafting table and titled it The Truth Behind the Brand. Slide 1 showed the original Grain and Grit logo. Slide 2 showed the growth curve after I took over partnerships. Slide 3 listed every sponsor I had brought in. By midnight, I had 12 slides, 4 audience charts, and 1 clear plan. I would not attend the new workshop opening as Marcus's guest. I would stand in front of everyone who had started doubting me and prove that the business they admired had my work inside every part of it. The rehearsal took place beneath the old brass clock inside the converted trolley depot. Marcus, Darius, Naomi, Owen, and 1 sponsor representative watched as I presented 12 slides proving that Grain and Grit had grown through my work. Be realistic. My husband's little workshop had never become a business by accident. I counted 6 campaigns, 4 major sponsors, and 1 channel name that came from me. Marcus admitted that he had allowed people to call him self-made without correcting them. That was the first honest thing he had said in weeks. I told him I had designed the brand, managed the inbox, and protected opportunities he would have missed. He could not deny any of it. Then I said the part everyone avoided. Brands had not selected him only because of his woodworking. His skin color made him useful as an inspiring story, while people like me made him acceptable to serious companies. Darius closed his notebook. Naomi kept the camera running. Marcus touched the inside of his wedding ring and asked me to cancel the public presentation. He offered to credit every campaign I had created, divide our professional roles, and end the marriage privately. In return, I had to stop using his race to question whether he deserved his success. I refused. I told him that without me, he was a skilled laborer standing inside a company he did not understand. Marcus became quieter. He said I should speak at the opening exactly as planned and use my own words. Naomi should leave every camera on. Afterward, he would handle everything properly. I heard surrender. Sabrina did not answer the invitation I sent her. 1 message. 1 read receipt. Nothing else. Owen confirmed he would attend. The press list was full, and Marcus had approved my live stream. By noon the next day, everyone would finally know who had built him. The depot smelled of cedar and lemon oil when I finished my presentation. Marcus stood beside the walnut desk, touched the inside of his wedding ring, and smiled. Then he asked Naomi to play the Artisan Market recording from 11:42. My hand stayed on the microphone. The screen showed me calling Marcus's identity part of the product. Next came the sponsor inbox I had hidden, the full convention stream, my deleted voice message, and the rehearsal where I refused his private offer. Marcus's dates had not been obsession. Naomi's drives had not been storage. His silence had not been surrender. Every camera had kept running because he had spent months saving my complete words. Darius announced that the company would open as Carter Reed Buildworks, with Marcus as co-founder and Naomi leading media. A sponsor representative said the files were complete and unedited. I tried to call them private arguments, but the screen kept playing. Owen confirmed that I had asked him about replacing Marcus. Then he signed his distribution agreement with Marcus and joined him for the press photograph. Sabrina's reserved chair remained empty. A temporary injunction later gave Marcus sole control of the channel while his business interference complaint moved forward. I moved into a furnished apartment. My agency placed me on unpaid leave. Aisha blocked me, and Sabrina ended our friendship in one formal message. Owen produced Marcus's renovation series. Online, every edited clip I had posted was buried beneath links to the full recordings. Marcus had erased my contribution for years. That part was still true. I had wanted the room to see that he did not build his success alone. Instead, I proved that I needed him to look smaller before I could feel visible. My walnut phone stand remained on the registration table, holding the paused image of my face. The last thing left from our marriage was a walnut stand holding the recording that ended it.